Hey, you spend $126,000 on something, you kind of like it to work out of the box. One totally brand new John Deere 712 FC 12 row folding corn head. This will be the first folding head we've had. See the big cylinder there, one on either side. So this will fold to 6 rows wide and go down the road. We won't have to take it off and put it on the head trailer. So that is going to be convenient for us. But what do I want to improve about this thing? Okay, so what are we going to do with our brand new corn head that I don't think it's quite good enough? The secret to that is in this mystery pallet. 12 rows on the corn head, 12 boxes on the pallet. Let's see what's in them. There we go. So that's one side of one row. New gathering chains for a corn head that's already got brand new gathering chains. But we've got these funky brushes on here. What's that all about? Okay, so I got one of the snouts up so we can kind of see the guts of this thing and how it works, and we can talk about the gathering chains here. So, see the gathering chains on a row here. So they're going to be going that way. And these lugs are going to be guiding the ears of corn in. And these are the deck plates. So when you have an ear of corn, the stalk of corn is coming down, and the butt of the ear will hit these, and it'll pop the ear off the stalk, and the stalk will go on through and be processed by the head. Now these deck plates, one side is hydraulically adjustable, so with a switch in the cab, I can widen these or tighten these. Like when I do popcorn, because the ear is so much smaller, I will run these down to the setting 0. That doesn't mean they're touching, but that means they're as close as they can get, because the way they are this wide, or if they're too wide, the ear of popcorn might shoot right on through there, and that would be bad. We don't want to do that. So what's going to happen when we put those new chains on? All this area between the lugs is going to be covered by the brushes, and the brushes from each side will overlap each other a little bit, and they will wear. We ran these chains on our old head as well for 4 seasons. Same chain for 4 seasons. We got 2 seasons out of the brushes. So after 2 years, we replaced them, and we put new brushes on and ran those another 2 years in 18 and 19. New head in 2020, and the chains are a little different. They didn't transfer over from our 612 to the 712, so we had to get new chains. One thing Deere has done that I do like is these chain guides here. They went back to making those steel. They were plastic on our last head, and I didn't even know they were supposed to be straight, because they were always bowed out this way until I saw a new head with the plastic, and I was like, oh, those are straight. Apparently they're supposed to be straight, and I guess that's common that they get bowed. So they went back to metal, which is nice, and it also looks like you have a little more space, maybe quite a bit more space, to get a wrench in here. This is the tension. There's a spring in this tube here, so that's the tension on the chain that'll push this bottom sprocket out and put the correct tension on the chain. I forget what it is. Of course, these are right since it's new. It's supposed to be like a, what is it, an 1/8 inch or 3 millimeters, something like that. It's supposed to be what that gap is right there to keep the correct tension on the chain. But yeah, it's nice they went back to this steel. It looks like it's going to be a little easier to work on, and maybe a little easier to clean out at the end of the season. I guess we'll find out once we get this thing dirty. Yeah, the little card on the box here even says something about those poly guides we used to have. Consider replacing warped poly chain guides. Warped chain guides can push 360 yield saver bristles together, causing premature wear and increased residue intake. I was actually wondering about that. Those of you who've been watching might know we had some gearbox issues with the other corn head. We replaced a gearbox on a row last year. It's about $3,000. I think it was actually $3,300 for that gearbox. And we replaced one the year before that. And the row units, the last day of harvest last year, I was checking the dipsticks. They all have a dipstick. 3 of them had to actually run dry on the last day of harvest, the last 20 acres. So I pumped those full of corn head grease, which these newer corn heads, actually not even newer for quite a while, they've gone to gear oil from corn head grease, but we survived on corn head grease to make it through the end of the season. It doesn't come out through the leaky seals as much as the oil does, so that kind of saved us. But these snap rolls, before we had the opposed snap rolls, so the knives on each side were straight across from each other, so when they rolled around, you'd have two knives straight across. The Deere guy kind of thinks that was making the snap rolls on either side kind of spread apart from each other, and maybe that's why we had some gearbox problems. So these are intermeshing, so the knives are never across from each other, they're staggered. So hopefully this head didn't give us any gearbox problems. We kind of strongly considered with going with a brand other than Deere, but we kind of think there's some improvements here, and we'll see. Hopefully this one doesn't bother as much as the previous head. And now if we're looking underneath, I covered this when we bought the last corn head new several years ago. I'll put the link to that video up on the How a Corn Head Works video. But so we're below the gathering chains and the deck plates. So you got the snap rolls here. So these are going to be spinning towards each other very, very, very fast. And they've got flutes on them here, or knives, whatever you want to call them, that are straight from front to back. And those will process the stalk as they come down. Here in the manual is maybe a better visual of the types of rolls. So that's what we used to have, the opposed. So you can see the knives are straight across from each other when they're in the center of the row. Now these are chopping. Those are pretty aggressive there, and what we have is the intermeshing here. So that's what ours look like. These are your feelers for the guidance. Of course, this runs GPS, just like the planter tractor and the other things we do, but corn harvest needs a little bit of help. So one row has these, so you'll have stalks running through those feelers, and that kind of guides it just left and right a little bit to keep it right on the row. Another thing that's either going to be much, much better or twice as bad is on our old 12 row, non-folding, you had like a big carrier bearing right here in the center. Now occasionally when you wrapped up some green stalks or some burr cucumber, whatever would want to wrap around the auger, it wouldn't come off here in the middle. It would get all bunched up in the middle, and I think it's because you had this bearing here in the carrier, and it would just bunch up against that and couldn't come off. So now that's gone with the folding, and it always seems to happen towards the middle, not really towards the outside, so I think you're going to be fine. Well, now you've got that carrier here, where you've got basically 3 augers, because you got the 2 that are going to fold up on the side. So you got that carrier there, but it seems to me you have your plugging problems more in the center of the head, not stuff coming from the outside of the head. So hopefully those aren't an issue. We just got to run in those kind of conditions to find these things out. Let me install one row super fast, and then we'll see what they look like on the head. So there we go, 1 down, 11 to go. There is a set of the chains with brushes installed on a row. So you can see here, remember we have that deck plate there, so that's all kind of hidden now underneath here. So these will provide us cushion, and they will sweep all little kernels in. You don't get any butt shelling, anything like that. I have actually seen them when they're rotating several times. Ear might fly out. They'll actually catch it between the brushes way out here and pull it back in, which that's a pretty rare event, but it's kind of fun to see. There it is, all folded up. You can see I'm missing 1 stalk stomper. That's to be out of the way of the tongue on the trailer. And then there's 2 more along the bottom that you can't see. That's for trailer purposes too. So 3 of them need to come off for the trailer. But hey, while it's upside down, if you're not familiar with corn heads, here now you can get a real good look at the snapping rolls. So that's what the stalk is being processed through. So those would be spinning super fast, and you got the knives on here. They pinch and cut the stalks, and that aids in the breakdown of the stalks, lets dirt and bugs and bacteria and all that kind of stuff get in there easily. Go around to the side. You can kind of see how it works with folding. You just got a bunch of these dogs or whatever you want to call them. So like driving the gearboxes, driving the auger at the back shaft up there. So like this one will fold over and come down and match up with this one to drive the rest of the auger. So really, the folding stuff, it's really pretty simple. There's not a lot to it. It's more of the complications in the actual putting the cylinders on for the folding, and then you got this hydraulic block that you didn't have before when you didn't have folding, and there's some little tiny hydraulic cylinders here. You'll see we'll do a time lapse of this thing folding and unfolding. These get this turnbuckle, and these snouts kind of flip over to make room for the folding to happen. So that's what she looks like, all folded up. I'm about to take it out, run it for a second, make sure that works, and put it back on the trailer. Deere marketing department at work, when you're folded up, there's a hidden logo that shows up, so everybody on the road knows that it's a Deere head. Not that it's huge and green, wouldn't be the giveaway. So yeah, you're obviously going to have a little more obstructed view going down the road than no head, plus a double stacked here folding head. But I am 6 rows wide, and you're looking out farther than just the head, of course, when you're driving down the road. When we had an 8-row head, we would take it on the road all the time, so I'm actually going to be narrower. The warning light there, the orange and red, that's just slightly narrower than the duals on the combine, so the head folded up is slightly narrower than my tires. So I'll get used to it. It will be the added weight and the bounce, I think. Probably learn you'll drive a little slower depending on the road, so I will get used to it. First trip down the road will be interesting. So I'm pulling into John Deere with the corn head. It's not going back into storage at the barn at my house. We decided to run it for a minute, and it is chattering an awful lot, like slip clutch engaged, and happens to be, we think, it's kind of hard to pinpoint the noise. I think it's the same row. They came and replaced a seal on yesterday because I saw some gearbox oil on the floor in the shop after it'd been in there a couple days, and the day before that they were out and fixed it because the single point connection couldn't get it to engage. Turns out it had hydraulic pressure on it, and fixed that, and then it messed up another seal and made the combine side leak. So yeah, Thursday we had a problem, Friday we had a problem, and now it's Saturday and we have a problem, and I am just bringing it back to town, dropping it off. Hopefully it's just something stupid, like maybe when I was doing the gathering chains or the guy was out working, I couldn't see anything. Maybe there's a wrench or something stuck between the snap rolls, and that's what's making it chatter, like when you get a log or something stuck in there. But I don't know. I hope it's something just stupid and silly like that, but I gotta get going, and we couldn't find anything wrong with it, so yeah, they can look at it. Brand new machine anyway, so shouldn't cost us anything, but some time and some frustration. So nice to have an acre or two on this thing before it has a problem, but let's see. So here I am pulling into Deere. They said there's room in the shed back there where I can park it, keep it clean in case it rains. There's a nice 780 on tracks right there. It's a cool machine, so we'll park her in here and see what develops next week. Hey, you spend $126,000 on something, you kind of like it to work out of the box. So we've run the head about 60 acres now, so let's take a look at how it's doing. So we're running along pretty good now. What was the problem with all the noise and the rattling that we were upset about? So that was when that leaky bad seal got replaced. The tech that put it back together, he left the row unit frame a little bit loose because you got to take all that apart, so the snapping rolls were banging up against the frames. So that's all that was. Not a big deal, just tighten up the fasteners in. That was all good to go. Of course, no charge to us on a brand new head, so that's good. I think we're pretty well dialed in now. Now I think we've got this nice new corn head dialed in. We got the brushes on there. We got any little bothersome things sorted out, I think. So we're going to keep running the rest of the day today, and then we've got some more beans that are probably going to be fit. So we'll pop this off, put the draper on, and go cut some more beans. But yeah, brand new head, but we wanted to tune it up a little bit. Thought you'd be interested in seeing that. And also, I have driven on the road a couple times, just a couple of miles. So far I'm going slower than I would without a head, but yeah, I think the folding feature is going to be nice. So the cart's full, he's going away. This would be a good time to talk about the brushes because we'll get out here in a second. So the brushes on these yield saver chains. Yes, if you run a combine cutting corn, that might look like quite a bit of trash coming in the head, and I would agree. They do bring in more trash. It was the same way on our other head, just because, I mean, you've got that cushion there. So it's bringing in, you know, a lot of the leaves and some of the stalk above the ear. We had on our previous head, we had 2 rows we were trying out with quite a bit more aggressive stalk roll. Those did not have near as much trash. You could watch them. The other 10 were about like this, and then the 2 we had the aggressive rolls on, they really didn't have the trash. So if you got, you know, like an aftermarket more aggressive stalk roll or a different kind of head than I do or whatever, maybe that won't be an issue. And I don't really think it's an issue. Whenever I post a video, somebody says something about it and the brushes, but I mean, it's not showing up in the grain tank or anything like that. So I mean, it's not really a concern for me bringing in more trash. Maybe something we could have done, maybe if we'd bought a used head. We didn't find a used folding head that we really wanted. We could have put those snap rolls on it, but on a brand new head, I'm not gonna spend another 10 grand on snap rolls for 12 rows. Pretty much when we were shopping all the used folding 12 rows were pretty much all stock masters. So chopping heads with a lawnmower blade, we don't want a chopping head for what we do, so we went ahead and went new. And you know, sometimes by times you need chains and rolls and that kind of stuff, you about bought new anyway if you're buying a slightly used head. And another point, maybe I'm wrong on this, why we went with the folding head, I think it's going to hold its value better. Similar to when we bought our first draper, our platform that we used for beans, rigid platform, was 2 years old at the time. The drapers were getting hot by then, so our 2-year-old head, we only were able to trade for half the price we paid for it, just because drapers were taking off so much. Actually went to an auction that winter and saw a parade of 1 to 2-year-old heads, just like the one we had traded, go for another 20% less than that. So the rigid heads really got hammered when drapers started coming out, and I think probably not to that extent, but when we're talking 12 row heads or bigger, I think the used rigid heads are going to be hurt by these folding heads because they're going to get more and more popular all the time. So let's see how these chains are working. We'll stop here for a second and see how things are looking behind the head on the ground. Shut the head off, machine off, let that spin down because this combine honks at me if I get off and I still got rotor speed showing. Get that done. Hearing some pretty good corn right here. That should be enough to keep it from beeping at me. Let's climb out. Get out here. Okay, we're right behind the head. Not behind the machine, just behind the head. And there's one kernel. There's one more. And this thing leaves essentially nothing behind. You know, as the corn gets drier and we grow popcorn, which that ear is very skinny, I run the deck plates as tight as they can go on popcorn. So that's important to us too. So I like these chains. I think I pretty much have them on every head I would have from now on. So I think they're good stuff.